All right, so we're going to be reading a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is a wonderful book, the Srimad Bhagavatam, written by Srila Prabhupada. So we were talking about the human form of life, and Srila Prabhupada says here, what does Srila Prabhupada say? Okay, Srila Prabhupada says in the Srimad Bhagavatam 2:3:18. So let me share the screen, 2:3:18, so you can see.
All right.
1 second. Prabhupada books. 2:3:18. 1 second. Let me start my video too. 1 second. Okay. All right. 2:3:18. This is a very important verse. I think you'll love it. 2:3:18. 2:3:18. All right. Okay, I'm sharing the screen now. So this will be the verse for tonight. Okay. Start share. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam 2:3:18. So can you read? Then I'll read. So you can read the translation.
The translation says, do the trees not live? Do the bellows of the blacksmith not breathe? All around us, do the beasts not eat and discharge semen?
Now let's read the purport.
The materialistic man of the modern age will argue that life, or part of it, is never meant for discussion of theosophical or theological arguments. Life is meant for the maximum duration of existence for eating, drinking,
Confirmed.
sexual intercourse.
Oh, confirmed again.
Making merry and enjoying life. The modern man wants to live forever by the advancement of material science. And there are many foolish theories for prolonging life to the maximum achievement of materialistic
maximum
duration.
Yes.
But the Srimad Bhagavatam affirms that life is not meant for so-called economic development or advancement of materialistic science, for the hedonistic philosophy of eating, mating, drinking, and merrymaking. Life is solely meant for tapasya, for purifying existence, so that one may enter into eternal life just after the end of the human form of life.
Okay, let's stop here for now.
Yes.
What do you think, Mahaprabhu Das?
I think that's very deep. I think that's all materialistic of us.
Yeah, see?
And it's not about that. It's about a higher being.
Yes. You see here, it's saying the materialistic men of the modern age will argue life or part of it is never meant for discussion of theophysical or theological arguments. Life is meant for maximum duration of existence, for eating, drinking, sexual intercourse, and merrymaking and enjoying life. So if you ask an average person who's on the street, what they'll say, oh, like I like to drink, I like to eat, I like to enjoy sex life, and that's all life is about. right? That's the
Right.
ordinary human being, so-called human being. And then Prabhupada says the modern man wants to live forever by advancement of material science. They're trying to live forever, but have you seen anyone living forever?
Nope.
They'll be baffled in that attempt. And there are many foolish theories for prolonging life to the maximum duration. They're coming up, if someone has a heart attack or something like that, they go and they clean it up. But the man does not change his life. He still does the same thing, eating,
That's right.
sleeping, mating, and defending. You cannot escape these things, right?
Right. Right.
So the doctors fix him up and maybe he lives for another, 15, 20 years. But he's very materialistic. He doesn't come to
And
the Bhagavatam.
And to continue to make the same mistakes.
Yes, that's yes, you know about that. But the Srimad Bhagavatam affirms that life is not meant for so-called economic development or advancement of materialistic science for the hedonistic philosophy of eating, mating, drinking, and merrymaking. So the Bhagavatam doesn't give too much attention to this so-called economic development, because what is this economic development? I mean, look at America, the greatest country in the world. What is the economic development? We have so many factories, but we're so much dependent on other countries. China, we were discussing about today, we're dependent on the government.
Right.
If they shut off the electricity, we cannot have our Zoom meetings. If they shut off the internet, if they shut off the water, what is there? Hey, I mean, life is finished. So
That's
what?
right.
So what is this economic development? What have we advanced? If they shut off our power, they shut off our water, how have we advanced? A caveman is more advanced in this regard because
Right.
he knows where to get power. He doesn't need, I mean, he knows where the water is, where's the river at.
Right.
So are we really advanced that we're so much dependent on this so-called economic development or advancement of material science, materialistic science?
It's an illusion.
Yes, this is an illusion. Huh? And what's the end result? Eating, mating, drinking, and merrymaking. That's the
Right.
end result of this so-called materialistic advancement, advanced civilization. So then the last sentence goes, life is solely meant for tapasya, for purifying existence so that one may enter into the eternal life just after the end of the human form of life. So tapasya means what we're doing here. We're having a discussion. We're trying to understand what is actually real, what is the goal of life, what will purify our existence. And then at the end of the human form of life, meaning that when we change our body, where do we go? Eternal
Right.
life at the end of the human form of life. What do you think?
Hare Krishna. Love it.
Hare Krishna. So this is the Srimad Bhagavatam. It deals on all levels of science, spirituality, life. So let's read the second paragraph. Mahaprabhu Das, you can read one sentence or two sentences and comment of what realizations are you getting just by reading one or two paragraphs or one sentence even.
The materialists want to prolong life as much as possible.
State of the Union. They're going to check those signatures based on a form.
Nayanarayan.
Yes, he's coming on now.
I'll wait for him to come on before I read. You want me to continue?
Let's see, what is he? He's muted, so you can continue reading.
The materialists want to prolong life as much as possible because they have no information of the next life.
See?
They want to get the maximum comforts in the present life because they think conclusively that there is no life after death.
Mm.
This ignorance about the eternity of the living being and the change of covering in the material world has played havoc in the structure of modern human society. I agree with that.
Jai.
Consequently, there are many problems aggravated the troubles. No, there
No,
are
multiplied.
many
Problems.
problems multiplied by various plans of modernized man. The plans for solving the problems of society have only aggravated the troubles. Even if it is possible to prolong life more than 100 years, advancement of human civilization does not necessarily follow. The Bhagavatam says that certain trees live for hundreds and thousands of years. At Vrindavana, there is a tamarind tree. The place is known as
Imlita.
Imelita,
Yes.
which is said to have existed since the time of Lord Krishna. In the Calcutta Botanical Garden, there is a banyan tree said to be older than 500 years. And there are many such trees all over the world. Swami
Shankaracharya.
Shankarakari lived only 32 years, and Lord Caitanya lived 48 years. Does it mean that the prolonged lives of the above mentioned trees are more important than Shankara or
Chaitanya.
Caitanya?
Yes.
Prolonged life without spiritual value is not very important. One may doubt that trees have life because they do not breathe, but modern scientists like Bose have already proved that there is life in plants, life because they do not breathe. But modern scientists like Bose have already proved that there is life in plants, so breathing is no sign of actual life. The
Yes.
Bhagavatam says that the bellows of the blacksmith breathes very soundly, but that does not mean that the bellows has life. The life by eating palatable dishes or by enjoying sexual intercourse. In reply to this, the Bhagavatam asks whether other animals like the dogs and hogs living in the same village with human beings do not eat and enjoy sexual life. The specific utterance of Srimad Bhagavatam in regard to other animals means that persons who are simply engaged in planting a better type of animal life consisting of eating, breathing, and mating are also animals in the shape of human beings. A society of such polished animals cannot benefit suffering humanity, for an animal can easily harm another animal, but rarely do good. Wow, that's pretty deep.
Yeah. Someone listening in the background?
Anybody there?
Yeah. So this is the Bhagavatam for you. This is Srila Prabhupada's explanation of the goal of human life. It's not for these eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And Srila Prabhupada systematically goes in the Bhagavatam from first canto all the way to the 10th canto on how we should live, how we should act, how we should think in all aspects of life, in different stages of life also, because every day we get closer to death. What should be our consciousness shaped? How should we look at things? All these
Very,
things
very different, very different from the modern man.
Yeah. Modern men thinks what? Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. This is the ultimate
it.
goal of life. That's
That's
it.
right. That's it.
And how are you going to do it? By earning money.
Right. That's right.
So, and then Srila Prabhupada gives a commentary on the bellows of the blacksmith. They breathe very nicely, but that's not really actually. How can you say this? They breathe very nicely, but they're not actually alive. And then Prabhupada says that the human being, they're also acting like this. The bellows of the blacksmith. They breathe, but they're living like animals.
That's right.
What's the use of living for thousands of years and not realizing that you're part and parcel of God, and it is your duty to establish a relationship with God?
Hare Krishna.
So let's go to the next shloka. You want to say something?
I'm good.
Some realizations?
I'm just absorbing everything that I'm learning.
Right. Yeah, absorbing is one part of it, and now we have to think how these things are playing in front of our eyes,
And to share it with others.
Yeah, we have to introspect. Okay, has my consciousness changed? Introspection is very integral part of spiritual life. Okay, let's read this one. Next one.
Men who are like dogs?
Yes, men who are like dogs.
Men who are like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses praise those men who never listen to the transcendental pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna, the deliverer from evils. He delivers us from the evil.
Yes. I mean, just look, in our lives, if we didn't come in contact with devotees of Srila Prabhupada's books or this Zoom call, we wouldn't be having this type of discussions, right?
That's right. That's right.
You're very appreciative of our Zoom meeting. So without Srila Prabhupada, we wouldn't be here. And who knows where we would be. At least we can introspect and see, oh yes, I would be doing something like these dogs that the translation talks about. Men who are like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses praise those men who never listen to the transcendental pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna, the deliverer from evils. So we would be one of them.
That's right. That's right.
So let's go to the purport, Mahaprabhu Das.
The general mass of people, unless they are trained systematically for a higher standard of life in spiritual values, are no better than animals. And in this verse, they have particularly been put on a level of dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. Modern university education practically prepares one to acquire a doggish mentality with which to accept the services of a greater master. After finishing a so-called education, the so-called education informed of no vacancy As dogs are negligible animals and serve the master faithfully for the bits of bread, a man serves a master faithfully without sufficient rewards. Persons who have no discrimination in the matter of foodstuff and who eat all the sorts of rubbish are compared to hogs. Hogs are very much attached to eating stools. So stool is a kind of foodstuff for a particular type of animal. And even stones are eatables for a particular type of animal or bird. But the human being is not meant for eating everything and anything. He is meant to eat grains, vegetables, fruits, milk, sugar, etc. Animal food is not meant for the human being. For chewing solid food, the human being has a particular type of teeth meant for cutting fruits and vegetables. The human being is endowed with 2 canine teeth as a concession for persons who will eat animal food at any cost. It is known to everyone that one man's food is another man's poison. Human beings are expected to accept the remnants of food offered to Lord Sri Krishna, and the Lord accepts foodstuff from the categories of leaves, flowers, fruits, etc. As prescribed by Vedic scriptures, no animal food is offered to the Lord. Therefore, a human being is meant to eat a particular type of food. He should not imitate the animals to derive so-called vitamin values. Therefore, a person who has no discrimination in regard to eating is compared to a hog. Wow. We must watch what we eat.
Yes.
Yep. Wow. Eating,
Yep.
what we put into ourselves. Very important.
Yes.
You've been a vegetarian for many years, Ramachandra Prabhu.
No, just 10 years. That's it. Not many years. 10 years.
Okay. Before that, you were eating meat and chicken and shrimp and fish and whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. You got it. You named everything. How did
Wow.
you know? Yeah. So you see why Krishna is saying we should not eat these other living entities, what the food is. So Krishna is not only telling us what we should do, he's not only telling that, how should we eat, he's giving the distinction that animal food and human food and cat and dog food,
Are different.
So yeah, all different. And then he says that we should offer what Krishna has given us as an act of sacrifice to a picture of Krishna. And then after that, chant, that we're very blessed to have Krishna consciousness in our life and to have Krishna in our life. In this way, our life is molded around Krishna, and everything, even though it might look like it's topsy-turvy, it will turn out to be all right.
Hare Krishna. It almost seems as though a true devotee is on a constant fast.
Yes, you can say that.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're fasting from meat, from chicken, from animal. We fast from it all for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, it's a very uplifting source. It's a very uplifting sense that we don't participate in the slaughterhouses, we don't pay for the meat. So we are actually helping the society. Not only that, our spiritual lives actually begin once we give up these bad habits. No, tapasya. We were reading about tapasya. Remember? And the other,
Tapasya.
yeah, tapasya means giving up these bad habits.
Tapasya.
Yeah.
Giving up bad habits.
Yes. Austerities,
Uh-huh.
But what is the austerity here? There's no austerity because you should eat only human food. Why should we eat food that is not really, it's bad for you, bad for your spiritual life, bad for your body, bad for your consciousness,
Uh-huh.
everything bad. Bad bargain. Oh yeah. Let's read. The camel is a kind of animal that takes pleasure in eating thorns. A person who wants to enjoy family life or the worldly life of so-called enjoyment is compared to the camel. Hmm? Materialistic life is full of thorns, and so one should live only by the prescribed method of Vedic regulations, just to make the best use of the bad bargain.
Uh-huh. What's Vedic? Vedic
Vedic,
regulations.
these regulations of Vedic regulations mean what we don't eat, how we live.
Okay.
These are Vedic regulations. Staying away from meat, fish, onion, garlic,
Uh-huh.
illicit sex, intoxication, gambling. That is
Uh-huh.
Vedic regulations.
Okay.
So all the other things are bad bargains. Eating meat, this, that. This human body is also a bad bargain in a sense if we don't utilize it properly. It's a bad bargain. Why? Because you're going to be getting another body next life. And the next body will be a very, very bad bargain because you have not lived according to the Vedic regulations.
Uh-huh. Okay. Got it.
Right?
That's right. So
Okay.
our next life depends very much on how we live the present one or the one before it.
Yeah, I mean, that is practical. Yeah, I mean, for example, in our lives, if we don't work, we don't get any money. And
Right.
then, so, somewhat your future life is troublesome, right? But
Right.
if you take up the Krishna consciousness, you understand that the goal of life is to establish a relationship with Krishna and follow the rules and regulations of the Vedic scriptures. You become blessed.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Do you want to read the next line or should I read?
Go ahead, Ramachandra.
Okay. A life in the material world is maintained by sucking one's own blood. Huh? Life in the material world is maintained by sucking one's own blood. The central point of attraction for material enjoyment is sex life. Prabhupada says, material life in the world, life in the material world is maintained by sucking one's own blood. The central point of attraction for material enjoyment is sex life. Huh? To enjoy sex life is to suck one's own blood. And there is not much more to be explained in this connection.
Right.
The camel also sucks its own blood while chewing thorny twigs. The thorns the camel eats cut the tongue of the camel, and so blood begins to flow with the camel's mouth. The thorns mixed with fresh blood create a taste for the foolish camel, and so he enjoys the thorn-eating business with false pleasure. So the camel is eating thorns and it's piercing his tongue and mouth, and he's getting some enjoyment from it. So similarly, sex life is you're losing, like you're cutting yourself and then you think you're enjoying. So it's comparable to this camel, eating his own blood.
Wow.
So it seems like it's very enjoyable, but it's a very abominable activity. Material sex life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Similarly,
yes, go ahead, Jai.
the great business magnates, industrialists who work very hard to earn money by different ways and questionable means eat the thorny results of their actions mixed with their own blood. Therefore, the Bhagavatam has situated these diseased fellows along with the camels. Wow. Heavy.
Yeah, yeah, heavy, heavy.
Very heavy. That's it.
So the second last paragraph.
Second to last. So Srimad Bhagavatam's categorization of the common man.
No,
without
we
any-
missed that. We missed
missed
this
it?
paragraph. Yeah, this paragraph we haven't read.
There we go. The ass is an animal who is celebrated as the greatest fool, even amongst the animals. The ass works very hard and carries burdens of the maximum weight without making profit for itself. Footnote: the ass is generally engaged by the washerman, whose social position is not very respectable. And the special qualification of the ass is that it is very much accustomed to being kicked by the opposite sex. When the ass begs for sexual intercourse, he is kicked by the fair sex, yet he still follows the female for such sexual pleasure. A henpecked man is compared, therefore, to the ass, the general mass of people who work very hard, especially in the age of Kali. In this age, the human being is actually engaged in the work of an ass, carrying heavy burdens and driving
Tela.
tela and rickshaws.
Yes.
The so-called advancement of human civilization has engaged a human being in the work of an ass. The laborers in great factories and workshops are also engaged in such burdensome work. And after working hard during the day, the poor laborer has to be again kicked by the fair sex, not only for sex enjoyment, but also for so many household affairs.
What do you think,
Wow.
Mahaprabhu?
I think that's the truth.
Hare Krishna. That is the truth.
Hare Krishna. We
Yeah.
need to share that.
That's the Sanatan truth, Sanatan Satya.
Jai, Amiyo Prabhu. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Amiyo Prabhu, why don't you read the last paragraph? Amiyo Prabhu, can you please? This one? Amiyo, can you read it?
Yes,
Please, go ahead.
Prabhuji. The ass, last paragraph.
Yes.
So Srimad Bhagavatam's categorization of the common man without any spiritual enlightenment into
The society of dogs.
I think he's having problems with the
society
connection.
of dogs.
Your connection is
Society
not
of
clear.
dogs, hogs, camels, and asses is not at all an exaggeration. The leaders of such ignorant masses of people may feel very proud of being adored by such a number of dogs and hogs. But this is not very flattering. The Bhagavatam openly declares that Although a person may be a great leader of such dogs and hogs, disguised as men, if he has no taste for being enlightened in the science of Krishna, such a leader is also an animal and nothing more. He may be designated as a powerful, strong animal or a big animal, but in the estimation of Srimad Bhagavatam, he is never given a place in the category of man on account of his atheistic temperament. Or, in other words, such godless leaders of dogs and hogs, like men, are bigger animals with the qualities of animals in greater proportion. Jai.
Wow.
Huh.
We're talking about Donald Trump.
Are we talking about all the leaders who are
Yes,
not
sir.
Krishna conscious?
Hare
Bhagavatam
Krishna.
doesn't discriminate.
Hare
Yes.
Krishna.
Yeah.
And the present also. Who is there?
Present also.
Present.
Present is there, yes. The present president is like a dead man. Where's Narayan Prabhu? What is he doing?
He's probably
unmute
trying to
his-
connect.
Narayan Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Can you hear
Hi,
us?
Paul. I've been listening with great fascination and admiration to the conversation. I did not want to say a word.
Now you can say
Haribol, Narayan,
some
Narayan.
words.
Haribol.
Who was reading just now?
It was
Yes, Prabhu.
Amir Ghosh, Prabhu. Amir
Uh-huh.
Ghosh.
Wonderful, wonderful. So no, I tuned in to listen, but you were saying things that I could not even dream to have come up with. Everything you were doing was so perfect. I didn't want to make my presence known.
Jai. Yeah, we just spontaneously picked this verse because I was looking at some keywords. So I was
Yeah.
looking at the bellows of the blacksmith, Prabhupada's word terminology.
Prabhu, you can tell the joke again. Prabhuji. Ramachandra
What joke?
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hi.
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
घर में
Picture
अंडा
there somewhere? Yeah, here I am.
रामचंद्र प्रभु जी घर में अंडा बाहर झंडा
Fridge में अंडा,
Haribol.
fridge में अंडा,
This
भारे
is so
हनुमान
wonderful.
झंडा.
We need to have the flow going every direction, not just one. Haribol, Mahaprabhu,
Haribol.
you're reading your everything that you did was wonderful. Your reading, your understanding, your realization. All I can say is I'm very humbled and happy to hear you talking like that.
Jai.
It's very important. Vedic means from the Vedas. It's the original cosmic scriptures to go way before, by hundreds of millions of years before Judaism, Christianity, Islam, stuff like that. They only came up recently. Judaism only came up after the beginning of Kali Yuga. It wasn't there before. So, and then Christianity came after Judaism, and Islam came after Christianity. So what we're talking about Veda, it goes way back to the source.
Jai.
So go ahead. I'm fascinated. Keep talking. I want to listen.
Okay, let's read the next paragraph. Amir, you ready to read, Prabhu?
yes Prabhu.
Jai.
Are you understanding my
Alright. Yes,
Absolutely.
my reading? Are you
Jai.
understanding?
amazing. No accent.
Fantastic.
We can understand. Okay,
We
Amir
need
Prabhu, go ahead.
if we want to deliver the world, by the way, we're going to need
Share
thousands
the
of
screen,
Mahaprabhus.
Prabhuji.
Jai.
The
Go ahead,
screen
Amir
is not
Prabhu.
showing.
Oh, okay, 1 second. 1 second. Hare Krishna. 1 second. I will set things up, then we can see. Okay. Reclaim host. And then I share my screen. Share screen. Okay. We're ready for you, Amir Prabhu.
Text 20, Prabhuji.
Yes, text 20.
Our purport.
Yes. Translation and purport.
The translation. One who has not listened to the messages about prowess and marvelous acts of the personality of Godhead and has not sung or chanted loudly the worthy songs about the Lord is to be considered to possess ear holes like the holes of snakes and tongue like the tongue of a frog.
Mhm.
So here it's saying that. Okay, go ahead. Please read the purport. Huh? Go ahead.
Yes. Devotional service to the Lord is rendered by all limbs or parts of the body. It is transcendental, dynamic force of the spirit soul. Therefore, a devotee is engaged 100% in the service of the Lord. One can engage in devotional service when the senses of the body are purified in relation with the Lord, and one can render service to the Lord with the help of all the senses. As such, the senses and the action of the senses are to be considered impure or materialistic as long as they are employed only in sense gratification. The purified senses are engaged not in sense gratification but in the service of the Lord in toto. The
Yes.
Lord is the supreme sense with all senses, and the servitor, who is part and parcel of the Lord, also has the same senses. Service to the Lord is the completely purified use of the senses, as described in the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord imparted instructions with full senses, and Arjuna received them with full senses, and thus there was a perfect exchange of sensible and logical understanding between the master and the disciple. Spiritual understanding is nothing like an electrical charge from master to the disciple, as foolishly claimed by some propaganda mongers. Everything
Everything.
is full of everything is full of sense and logic, and the exchange of views between the master and disciple is possible only when the reception is submissive and real. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that one should receive the teaching of Lord Chaitanya with intellect and full senses so that one can logically understand the great mission. In the impure state of a living being, the various senses are fully engaged in mundane affairs. If the ear is not engaged in the service of the Lord by hearing about Him from Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, certainly the holes of the ear will be filled with some rubbish. Therefore, the messages of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam should be preached all over the world very loudly.
Try.
That is the duty of a pure devotee who has actually heard about them from the perfect sources. Many want to speak something to others, but because they are not trained to speak on the subject matter of Vedic wisdom, they are all speaking nonsense. The people are receiving them with no sense. There are hundreds and thousands of sources for distributing mundane news of the world, and the people of the world are also receiving it. Similarly, the people of the world should be taught to hear the transcendental topics of the Lord. The devotees of the Lord, the devotee of the Lord must speak loudly so that they can hear. The frogs loudly croak with the result that they invite the snakes to eat them. The human tongue is specially given for chanting the Vedic hymns and not for croaking like frogs. The word Ashoti used in this verse is also significant. Ashoti means a woman who has become a prostitute. A prostitute has no reputation for good womanly qualities. Similarly, the tongue, which is given to the human being for chanting the Vedic hymns, will be considered a prostitute when engaged in chanting some mundane nonsense. Joy.
Joy.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you very much. Wonderful.
Excellent.
Wow. So, I mean, we read all these scriptures, purports, and stuff. Now, we should not only read them, we
Yes,
should think about it. What Prabhupada
yes,
is
probably.
saying.
And
Please, go
and
ahead.
in everyday in everyday people read the newspapers, the whole crap.
Yes,
That's
yes,
right. Joy.
yes. So Prabhupada says when his spiritual master used to speak, you know, he's saying himself that he had a very hard time understanding, but because he was very enthusiastic to listen what his spiritual master was saying, that was his qualification, because even though he did not understand, or seemingly did not seem to understand, but he was very receptive to what his spiritual master was saying. So similarly, we should always be hearing Srila Prabhupada's lectures, reading his books, having Ishtagoshtis, discussions in how we can progress in our spiritual life, because Krishna is unlimited and we're also part and parcel, but very small part and parcel of Krishna. We should be also experiencing these things in our lives, If we're
May I
not,
say something?
yes, no, Prabhu, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I would like to point out that in the last two readings, it's discussing essentially how to use the body to become Krishna conscious. In other words, when you're like the frog, like the snake, the bodily equipment, like the
Senses.
tongue, and senses also, that all of these qualities is being gently instructed in these purports, verses and purports, how to take the material proclivity or the tendency of the material activity, and then from that point, transform it into spiritual activity. So listening to the pure devotee speaking, Prabhupada describes that there is the question of the spiritual master will speak, but he points out that if the disciple doesn't listen in the mood of the speaking of the spiritual master, he's either going to have a very slow time of figuring things out and getting advancement, or he will miss it out altogether. He won't know what is being said. He will try to use his material brain to understand and material senses to understand the transcendental message. What I'm hoping for in our group here is that we will be able to speak from the platform of the listener to the pure devotee. In other words, when we hear from the spiritual master, our next thing is to recognize this is not my body, this is not my life in the material world, this is not my relationships with other human beings. This is about my going to the spiritual platform and no longer acting on the material platform. All these verses are telling us how to move from the material, but by hearing from the pure devotee submissively, meaning that we receive the message that is given by the spiritual master, that then we can move into the realm of hearing and chanting, and that will produce incredibly rapid spiritual advancement. Does that make sense?
Yes. Amiyo Prabhu, you were saying something? Okay.
You were referring to me? I'm sorry.
Yes, you or Amiyo Prabhu?
This is Mahaprabhu.
Yes, Mahaprabhu. Go ahead.
I'm good. I'm okay. I'm good.
Okay. Let's see. Right here. This is also very important here. Prabhupada says, therefore, the message of the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam should be preached all over the world very loudly. That is the duty of a pure devotee who has actually heard about them from the perfect sources. And I think this Krishna consciousness movement or Srila Prabhupada's movement has very nicely done that. But the practice is lacking in a large degree. You know, the books are there, millions of books have been distributed, but the actual discussion and how to get beyond the bodily conception of life is lacking, because all the classes we hear by the so-called initiators, they're basically dealing with this bodily conception of life to a large degree.
I agree.
Well, yes, but we've isolated the problem is that the initiators are Kanista Adhikaris, just like the audience. And for that reason, there's no step forward. If the Kanistas were eagerly embracing the idea of surrendering to Krishna completely, realizing and obtaining their original swarup or spiritual body that they have with Krishna in the spiritual world, revive that, and then create a wonderful reciprocal relationship with Krishna as a Madhyamadhikari and then Uttamadhikari, then that would be very successful. But because the initiators are not, they're like Boy Scout leaders. You can say, well, the Boy Scout leader is way ahead of the ordinary scout. Well, he may be ahead of the ordinary scout, but he's not on the absolute platform. He's just able to guide you a little bit more than you were going to anyhow. So that's why the movement, for all of its growth, for all of its ecstatic nature, is stagnating. And our 10,000-year project here, League for 10,000 Years, is to end the stagnation, not with war, not with criticism, not with fault finding, but with inspiration and example. And that will not be difficult. The world is waiting for what we're doing. That I would like to mention. We cannot imagine or we cannot think that what we're doing is not wanted It's wanted, it's yearned for. Look, pick up the newspaper, turn on the television. You'll see millions, literally millions of people are in a state of shock, yearning for what we are hoarding in our small association. Our job is to get each and every one of them free from their burden of ignorance, free from their distress of being manipulated and utilized and turned into robots on purpose by people who know how to make robots. In fact, robot manufacturers are turning people into robots. So that's our job. And I welcome the idea that each and every one of us, but we can't do it by simply talking. We can't do it by simply repeating what we read. That's what the Kanistas are doing. The Kanista audience, meaning the congregation, and the Kanista initiators, they're just repeating and repeating and repeating, and it produces a benefit, there's no doubt, but not enough benefit to justify the amount of effort they're putting into it. From the amount of effort that is going into the Krishna consciousness movement, we should be predominating philosophically, emotionally, psychologically, all over the world, which we have not yet come to the platform of doing. It's squelched from what Prabhupada was doing. It's been reduced down. Now we need to bring it up. Prabhupada, I just read today, the Srila Prabhupada said that in ISKCON is the same as Vaikuntha. Being in an ISKCON temple is essentially, when we say essentially, you can find all sorts of exceptions to it,
Right.
or you can find the truth of it. The truth of it is that everything being done at ISKCON temple is equal to Vaikuntha if you have eyes to see it. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
So that's
If you
what we
have
are
eyes to
doing,
see.
and we can bypass most things. And what we need that bypass, though, is what Srila Prabhupada is saying in this purport that we were just reading, and that is that we need to hear from the spiritual master. Hearing means reading. I mean, there's no difference between vibration is vibration, regardless of sound or letters on a page. If you read the letters on the page, the vibration comes up in our consciousness. So that vibration is transcendental. And if we look for that and not simply becoming educated or knowledgeable or politically advanced within the group of ISKCON devotees or something like that, if we go straight for the essence and the core, then we will be satisfied and happy as a result.
John.
Is that?
Yeah, I mean, my experience has been associating with the initiated disciples here in Sacramento. Not only my experience, Shravan's, even their own men, the ISKCON Initiator Club in Sacramento, they themselves are dissatisfied in their association, very dissatisfied. Oh, what happened? He left. Anyways, so Amiya Ghosh and Mahaprabhu Das, here I was talking about Sacramento. The people who are here, initiated by the initiators, they're very dissatisfied with their immediate association. And they cannot go beyond that association because they're in a box, like, crabs, all in one box. And they cannot think outside the box. And they keep doing the same thing over and over, over and over. So there's no, Satchidananda there, no more. Initially they come very enthusiastic, they preach for some time, but they don't take it to the next level. They get stuck, stuck, then they get more stuck. So they cannot get out of that holding pattern. So as devotees, we should always be experiencing these higher revelations, and then we should take the risks for Krishna, knowing that, okay, if he wants it, it will happen. If he doesn't want it, it's not going to happen. But we try it. Prabhupada did that, right? His spiritual master ordered him to preach in 1928, but he did it in 1950s when he started. Well, he was always doing it. He was always thinking about his spiritual master's mission and vision. Srila Prabhupada says that I heard from a great spiritual personality, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is in wonderful hands, He was very enthusiastic to meet his spiritual master. So similarly, we take this wonderful inspiration from Srila Prabhupada and his sincere devotees who are pushing on the mission and not just making a business out of this movement, making money. Money is going to come, according to your
Right.
karma. Oh, okay, you're back.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I got disconnected briefly.
oh, no problem. So what
But-
happened,
but-
I was talking about, we were talking about the holding pattern that the initiators have made. I was
Exactly.
giving my example that in Sacramento, I've been here 10 years, but
Yes.
in the beginning, I was very enthusiastic. Then I did some, preaching of distributing books and, at different temples and making money by distributing books and asking for money. That was all good. But sooner or later, I got stuck dealing with these initiators and their disciples. And Shravan also experienced that. He's been in Sacramento much longer than me. So his freedom of speaking frankly and openly regarding different issues, he gets banned for. So it's
Really.
very distressing to a devotee when they cannot speak the truth, they cannot repeat what Srila Prabhupada has said. Not only that, push the movement to the next level.
That's an interesting point. You say speak the truth. But what if a person speaks and it isn't the truth? Should
Yeah.
they also have the chance to have an interchange with somebody? And it's a ghosty, a debate, a
Yeah.
conversation?
Yes.
You can't
No.
just say my way or the highway. And
Yeah.
that's essentially what's happening,
Yeah.
my way or the highway.
Yes. Yes.
But it doesn't have to be that way.
Right. Right. Yes.
We can say, okay, you're 100% wrong. Now let's have a conversation. Let that be the beginning, not the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Istagosti means I can say something 100% wrong, and you will say, that's wonderful. I'm glad that you said something 100% wrong. How much time do you have? Can we sit down and go through it point by point, maybe using Socratic syllogisms to go up the scale of reason until we agree? And either I say you're wrong, either I will end up agreeing with you, or you may agree with me, or more likely, both of us will find another spot of agreement where we've both advanced beyond our present consciousness.
Mm.
Even the Greeks took that point of view.
Mm.
What to speak of sadhus, Brahmins, or whatnot that from following Vedic philosophy. But Vedic philosophy has become so polluted that, exploited, polluted, monetized, that unfortunately the biggest cheaters in the world you're going to find in the so-called spiritual circles in India, rather than the enlightenment which one would expect. And people used to go in the 60s, well, I want to go to India and find a guru and have this
Yes,
wonderful.
Prabhuji, nobody wants to read the Shastras. They want a guru to preach them.
Yes,
That's
a
why they
fact.
got wrong.
But if they read the Shastras, they don't know how to read the Shastras. If they read it, what's the guarantee they'll understand? That's why when Prabhupada gives Shastra, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad Gita as it is, Bhagavad Gita as it is
Yes.
means Shastra that is not cheating you. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Because the Shastra can be seen from a million different angles. I was just reading today that Kapila comes down as the son of Devahuti. But there was another Kapila that came afterwards who was an atheist. So in India, they confuse those two Kapilas.
Yes.
One's the atheist and one's the... And so when Prabhupada, when we're writing the teachings of Lord Kapila, Prabhupada said it must say underneath the son of Devahuti.
Mm.
Otherwise, they will think we're writing about the other Kapila.
Right. Very distinct.
Yeah. So that's it. Because we're in Kali Yuga, we should understand, and in the light of the fact that we've been delivered, or in the process of being delivered by Lord Chaitanya, We
Right.
should celebrate the destruction of everything that makes sense and dharma and religiousness and religiosity and traditional Gotra-based religion in India. We should celebrate it because that disintegration means it's real. Disintegrate, it's meant to disintegrate. And we are meant to come in its place with the one thing, the one strain coming down by disciplic succession, Lord Chaitanya, then Thakur Bhaktivinoda, then Gaur Krishna Das Babaji Bhakti Siddhanta, and Prabhupada. That strain comes down to us. They say, this replaces Hinduism, which is, I think, one of the problems of Sri Bhanu. This replaces Hinduism. This replaces Christianity. This replaces Islam. This replaces Judaism. This replaces Jainism. This replaces Zoroastrianism. It replaces everything. Buddhism. It replaces everything. And you guys, well, it doesn't seem to. I mean, we've been chanting all over the place, blue in the face, and Christians and everybody that are going along, and they got these mega churches or whatnot. Yeah, just be patient. Hold your breath a little bit. Within 50, 100 years, they'll be gone. Maybe 20 years. They'll be gone. And we will remain. This Krishna consciousness movement will remain.
They'll take over all the churches and nice buildings and make a temple in every town and village.
Well, you know, Prabhu, that's what happened in the late 60s and early 70s. All the Christians were moving out of their churches. Did you vanish?
It's happening now. I can see it.
Okay. All the Christians moved out of their churches, and we were able to rent them or buy them for pennies on the dollar. I mean, nobody's going to take a church and turn it into a house. Maybe today would, but not back then. And we got all those churches, but the Christians became totally freaked out. Freaked out in the sense that they created a groups called Jesus Freaks. And the Jesus Freaks would run up and down the beach screaming the name of Jesus because we were doing Sankirtan. Now we're not doing Sankirtan, therefore our influence is just anecdotal or memory of former times, you know.
Right.
But the Christians and then the mega churches came after that. They decided to do what we were doing, except they did it bigger. We could have done mega kirtans, but we didn't.
Right.
We don't have mega ISKCON temples. We have little ISKCON temples. Hold 100 people, big temple. But what about ones that hold 50,000 people? The mega churches do that. You can have huge. That's because they took our example and they utilized it for their religion. Isn't that amazing? And what happened to us? Oh,
What
we're
happened to
shriveling
us?
away.
With the COVID killed him. COVID killed Krishna.
The supreme personality of COVID. Lord COVID destroyed the ISKCON temple.
Amir Ghosh Prabhu, you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I want to know that today that many Western disciples also joining in temples or not?
Right now?
New
Well,
disciples?
I don't
Western?
know. No,
Western?
actually not. It's sort of awkward.
Well,
yes. Western in West
I know.
temple they are joining new devotees.
Yeah, they are joining.
Who is?
Yeah, Westerners.
Westerners or Indians are joining?
No,
Westerners,
Amir
they
Ghosh
are
Prabhu was
leaving
asking, are
Christianity
Westerners
and
joining?
temple.
In the West, meaning in Los Angeles, Sacramento, like that?
No, in the West,
USA.
general, in the West.
Meaning what? Europe? Russia?
No, he's saying that are the Westerners taking up Krishna consciousness and joining?
Meaning the average American is giving up was Christianity and joining Christian consciousness?
Yes.
The answer is strangely, for the most part, no. The temples have become caretakers of the deity to cater to the Indian population. Isn't that true in Sacramento? Do you see a lot of Westerners joining?
No, no Westerners. No
Who
Westerners.
said? No, that's the problem. So
They are all Indian. In
No Westerners.
West, they are all Indian.
Yes,
mostly
all
Indian.
Indian.
That's what happened in Detroit decades ago. They got the Fisher Mansion, a huge mansion belonging to the people that make Chrysler and stuff like that. And the way they bought it was the Emery Ford, who is the grandson or something of Henry Ford, bought the temple. It was a big joke / scandal in Detroit that the Fisher Mansion took over, maybe it was General Motors's. No, the Fisher Mansion was taken over by Ford's descendant, and they all became chanting Hare Krishna in the Fisher Mansion. That was going on. They built a big museum. Everything was going great. And then it began to diminish. It came down to huge mansion with half a dozen devotees in it, arranging for Durga Puja and stuff like that for the Indian pop and weddings and pujas. And so they just became practically a rental hall for the non-Vaishnava population or semi-Vaishnava population of Indians. Los Angeles is also like that. The majority of people that are joining, meaning brahmacharis like that, Westerners, the majority of Westerners that are joining are basically from South America or Mexico. They're from South America or Mexico, and they're simply joining to do work for free, washing pots and gardening and whatnot. Somebody they would if they were out on the street, not being devotees. Well, it's nice they're devotees. They're washing pots and gardening and sweeping the floors and stuff like that. But why are they doing it? They want to get, in America, we have a thing called a green card, which is a card that's issued to give you immigration status legally. So the green card means this man is doing something indispensable that someone else could not do because he's in a temple and he has to be initiated. So you can't just have any old person doing that. They have to be special. And so this special person is from Mexico or Venezuela or someplace like that. And he is then able to do the work in the temple. But are they very much observant? No, they don't. Most of the devotees in Los Angeles don't even go to the temple. Maybe a dozen or 2 dozen out of a couple of hundred go to the temple programs every day. And most of the people living in apartments just stay in the apartments. Back when I came to Los Angeles in 1973, if you missed 3 programs, morning programs, Mongol Archery programs, and the other programs, someone was there with a scoreboard keeping track of your name. If you missed the program 3 times, you had to move out of your apartment. But now nobody goes and they're not asked to move out of their apartments. In fact, for some weird reason, because the temple gets a percentage of the money, they hooked up cable TV into all the apartments. So now they can all watch nonsense in their apartments. So that's what's happened. And that's why what we're doing is a revitalization of the original purpose of Krishna consciousness. If we could succeed in Davavanashram, which means survival communities based on cow protection, and if we do World Sankirtan, which will be a revolutionary way of waking up the general population of rich, middle class, and poor in so many countries, particularly starting in India, to realize There's another dimension ahead of us. That dimension is a dimension which keeps us from becoming mere slaves to the military-industrial complex. We can become free men by chanting Hare Krishna and then create our lives as we wish them. And if no one will give us a job, and no one will take care of us, then we will start Daivavarashram. We'll create communities, 10,000 people at a time, 20,000 people at a time, 2,000 people at a time on acres of land, and then protect cows, or be protected by cows, I should add, should say. And then the cow's our mother, she gives her breast milk to us to drink, not a product to be sold in the marketplace. We have to buy milk in the marketplace. I do, everyone does. But that's not what we do with Davavarnashram. Davavarnashram, the cow, just like Mother Yasoda or the other gopis, they gave out much more milk than one child could drink. So in Vrindavan, all the children would come up, 7-year-old children would come up to a gopi and drink her breast milk. The mothers. They would drink the breast milk at 7 years old. And why not? In my last marriage, which unfortunately came to an end, my daughter was 5 years old. She was drinking breast milk from her mother, as well as our baby, who was only 6 months old. Why not? But no, they stopped. I was not given breast milk ever when I was a child because my mother thought it was primitive and unsanitary and not scientific. So I was given formula based on Cairo syrup and formula you buy mixed, and then you mix in Cairo syrup. I ended up with an endocrine problem, which I still have because of too much sugar being ingested by me when I was 2 weeks old, 2 months old, 2 years old. And I was only saved by eating solid food. But even so, I've always had digestion problems from the formula I was given as a child. Anyhow, so to answer your question succinctly, the people are not coming to Krishna consciousness because we are no longer broadcasting Krishna consciousness. The ones that are there that are not Hispanic, for the most part, Indians don't move into the temple. They come and visit the temple. They have houses, they have families, businesses, yes, professions, IT, of all things. Yes, they do all that. But the ones that live in the temple or near the temple that are Westerners, that are getting older by the day, I might add, they sell books, change books, but they sell them. And they, like 20, 30 people go out every day selling Prabhupada's books, or what's left of Prabhupada's books after the changes were made. And that's how the temple makes tons of money from book sales. But if they want to raise money in a chunk, they go to the Indian community. So essentially, they have to cater to the Indian community and please the Indian community in order to get money.
So Prabhuji, there are not farms in the temples?
The what?
Farming communities in temples? Or
No. They don't. Nobody wants to do that. They want to be in the city and make cash. They don't want to milk cows.
That's the essence, Prabhuji. We have to grow our own food, our own milk.
You do? Or we should as a movement?
No.
Are you saying that in Bengal, that's what you were doing?
There are communities.
Oh,
No,
yeah, communities. But
he's saying that.
Let me only say, there's not one successful Varnashram community. You have a piece of farmland and to put up a cottage for yourself or a house, and maybe you get 30 other people and they put up cottages for themselves. We have that in Saranagati in Canada. It's just a bunch of householders living independently on the land and nothing, no cow protection at all. Why not? Because they're not based on Varna Ashrama. There's no Vaishyas. Everybody's basically a well-paid Shudra and some Brahmins, but no Kshatriyas. So they could have made it a great success, but they never divided it according to Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. If you don't have that division, even if everyone is initiated with first stage or second stage, meaning Brahman initiation, Diksha, unless people have had Diksha and are in the four Varnas, it means Shudras have Diksha, Brahmins have Diksha, etc. Unless you have that societal structure, you're not going to have cow protection that works. Because the Shudras, nobody can, in a farm like that, Varnashram community, nobody needs money. No money
Yes.
required. You don't buy and sell. It's just the Vaishyas, who now we think of as merchants, they have cows. So the wealth that is produced is in grains, cloth to wear, ornaments to wear, milk, and give it all to the temple. There has to be a temple. And the deity owns the land. The deity, like Puri, the deity owns all the land where the people live. And so nobody has to pay rent. Nobody has to buy clothes. Nobody has to buy food. You go to the temple and take as much prasad as you can eat. Nobody has to do anything. That's the Daiva Varnashram. But it cannot occur without Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras. In New Vrindavan, they just have a cattle ranch. They're not really doing cow protection. The cows are hardly protected. They're just like all the other cows, except for that they're not slaughtered, presumably.
Prabhuji, that structure, the social structure has totally fallen down in ISKCON.
Oh, you mean the Daiva Varnashram?
Yes, the farming communities, the Varnashram, Chaturashram Dharma.
There has never been a real Vedic farming community. Not one. All these Gitanagri, New Vrindavan, places like that. Oh, there are plenty of places around the world and even in India where there are some attempts at farming communities. But unless you have the four Varnas, and unless the land is owned by the deity, not by private investors who come there to live, I want to buy into your community. No, you can't do it. You have to have a society that does not use money, at least amongst their own members. Maybe if we have extra grain, we can sell it, get the money, and then buy more desi cows and bring them from India in an airplane or something like that, the first class seats. But unless that happens, it's not going to work. So that's one of our projects. My former wife, Rupa Manjari, also goes by the name Elizabeth. She has a strong commitment to doing it, and she has a fiance. My ex-wife has a fiance who's an attorney, and he claims that he can raise $500,000. But it has to be not just for cows; it has to be for the whole system. You get the land, and the land is owned by Krishna, and then the temple is built, belongs to Krishna. You had Jagannath deity there, most likely. Krishna doesn't have to be Jagannath, but Jagannath is nice. He likes eating lots of food, they said. In Puri, I was talking to people that were the direct servants of Jagannath. They say, we make jokes about Jagannath. Oh, he doesn't move around very much. Or he's fat and lazy. All he likes to do is eat. That's how they talk about Lord Jagannath. They don't mean it offensively, not even slightly offensively. They mean it casually. It's like you talk about your cousin. Oh, my cousin, she's so obese, all she does is eat. And it's not that you hate your cousin or despise your cousin. It's just the way you're talking about your cousin, And that's how they talk about Lord Jagannath. It was really quite an eye-opener, considering I have been involved with Lord Jagannath since 1969 when I built my first Rath Yatra car in San Francisco, and carved deities all over the country, called Jagannath deities.
Okay.
So-
Amir Ghosh, any questions? Mahaprabhu, any questions? We've been going on for like 88 minutes now. So I think it's time to. Next session would be on Wednesday. But
Next Wednesday, is that okay? Hare Krishna.
yeah, that'll be nice.
Okay,
So,
Mahaprabhu, is there anything you want to say?
yes.
No, I'm good.
So Mahaprabhu, think about what we have read, and you can discuss in our WhatsApp group, League for 10K. You can send an audio message, a text message, or whatever, and we can reply. So this way, we're always in contact, either emails, WhatsApp, and we can call each other also. So anytime.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes. We need to create a interaction, global interaction of soul to soul, jiva to jiva, consciousness to consciousness, not based on our body. Oh, I went fishing last night. Oh, did you catch a fish? Oh, yeah, I caught a fish this huge like that. No, that's not our style. We want to talk kata, Krishna kata, meaning language and topic of Krishna, and from the Shastra, meaning the scriptures, and from our spiritual identity, going past, but sometimes incorporating our physical identity. And we can do that. It's not difficult, it's, Prabhupada told me, it's easy. So if we think it's difficult, then we're doing it backwards or sideways. If we do it straightforwardly, it's easy. Is that okay?
Satchit Ananda.
Amir Ghosh, so nice to see you. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Anyone watching this on Facebook, on YouTube, you can also join us. Our next session would be Wednesday. We're going to start about 7:30, 8 o'clock. You can send me a message on Facebook or a message on YouTube. Say, I'd like to join, and I'll add you to our WhatsApp group. And whenever we have sessions, we send out a message on the platform Zoom, and then you can join.
Now, Prabhu, can you ask people to make comments? And when they make comments with their name, or without their name, whichever way they like, we can then discuss their comments in front of 25,000, potentially 25,000 people.
Yes. So yes, what you have said has been recorded, so they can ask questions on YouTube, on Facebook. It's open forum where anyone can come and ask questions. So we will read your questions, answers, discussion, and you can also participate if you would like.
Yeah, but even if you don't participate, say, well, I don't feel comfortable getting into a group of 8 or 10 people every 3 days a week, 4 days a week. But we can say, you can leave your comment, and if you leave a comment, make it clear that it can be read to everybody all over the world,
Right.
but not necessarily discussed if you don't want it discussed.
Right.
But if you do want it discussed, we'll discuss it. And if you want it discussed and mention your name, we will be glad to give you the credit.
Also, they can remain anonymous. They can remain anonymous when they join also. So they don't have to share their video. No one knows who they are. They don't have to share their audio also. They can just listen, or they can send us a message on Zoom via chat, so we can have a discussion on their questions,
It's
and
good.
they can hear us. So many ways
And
we
we
can
want
communicate.
to expand this in every direction. Have we discussed getting onto Twitter?
Oh, not yet. This week I'll take a look at Twitter.
Yeah. What other Mahaprabhu? Are you there still?
Yes, Mahaprabhu is still there.
Okay. Do you know, besides Twitter, what other chat platforms